All right, welcome back to the Clemson Sports Show. Thank you all for joining us for another episode. We're joined by Joseph Hastings today, who is in Miami. He's down doing a recruiting trip right now. He's visiting with several of the top prospects in the country. Just Joseph, what was today like? You're down there Thursday night, kind of wrapping up some things. So what was today like for you?
Yeah, so today was a little bit hectic. Flew out of Atlanta in the morning, got into Miami, took an Uber to where I needed to go, got a car, and pretty much took off from there. Went to Monsignor Pace High School, got to talk with a couple of big-time players in their respective classes. Shemar Stewart, who's the number 11 overall player in the 2022 class, just a big-time dude. He has Clemson in his top 5 as well, so definitely a very great interview, being able to speak with him and see what his recruitment's like right now. And then Adrian Posse, 2024 quarterback, doesn't have an offer from Clemson just yet, but he camped in the summer. He's talked with Coach Streeter in the past before, actually talked with him today. So that was another good conversation about, looking ahead into the future as well. And then finally, I got to watch recent 2023 commit Nathaniel Joseph, his practice at Miami Edison High School. That was a really great time that I had there. It was about 3.5 hours that I was there. So it was very long. They were doing film review. They were doing a bunch of stuff on the practice field, practicing their sets and doing goal line situations. But it was awesome. Got to speak with him after. Impressive young man. We'll talk more about him in a minute. But I also got to speak with his head coach as well.
So with Shamar and Adrian, let's start with them. Just what did you learn about them as players, about the recruiting process for them, and where Clemson might be for those guys?
Yeah, so for Shemar, he's got Clemson in his top 5, along with Texas A&M, Miami, of course. He's right next to them. Ohio State's also in the mix, and so is Georgia. Shamar's going to be taking a visit to Georgia this weekend for the Georgia-Arkansas game. But for right now, Matt, he's kind of taking a slow, patient approach in his recruiting process. He's not going to be taking much visits afterward. He's focusing on his senior season, and he's going to be signing in February. So I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe holds off on taking his officials until after the season. So definitely somebody who's taking his time in this process. But as for Clemson, he says that he speaks with multiple coaches on a regular basis. Defensive end coach Lemansky Hall, as well as defensive coordinator Brent Venables. Both of them are just kind of emphasizing to him that they really need him. Obviously, Clemson doesn't have a defensive lineman committed in the 2022 class. I'm actually seeing a couple of big-time kids on Friday, which I'm very excited to bring updates on. And then also just looking at Shamar's recruitment and Clemson's pursuit of him, he said that they have a winning tradition, a winning pedigree. Even though this year they've struggled on offense, he's really taken notice of their defense and how they've performed. So, yeah, he's someone who's interested in Clemson. My overall impression, though, is that Clemson definitely is on probably the lower half of that top 5, even though technically there isn't a half or a 5. I'd probably put them around 4 or 5 there in that range. I'd say Miami, Georgia, those are the schools kind of to pay attention to, maybe throwing Ohio State. Clemson definitely has a lot of work to do there. I think that's no surprise why they offered Marvin Jones Jr. earlier this month in September. So in terms of Clemson's pursuit of him, I'd say they do have a lot of ground to make up, but if they can get him on campus again, he visited in the summer, that would be great. As for Adrian, I mentioned before that he visited during the summer. He camped back in June. Coach Streeter said that they don't recruit 2024 kids, so he's pretty much had no contact with them up until today. He told me before his practice that he was going to call Coach Streeter. So that's communication that's starting to open up now, it seems like. And Adrian said that Clemson would be a school that he'd definitely take a strong look at if they offer him. He's got offers from Florida, Ohio State, Notre Dame, just a lot of big time schools there in his recruitment. But he said that Clemson, based on their development of QBs and Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, all those guys, he would have to take a close look at them if they offered.
Yeah, so let's go back to Shamar for a minute. I know that you said Clemson's kind of in the bottom half right now, but I know that staff feels like if they can just get someone on campus, they really like their chances. And you touched on it a little bit, but do you feel like he's still a ways away from making a decision and there's still time to try to make up some ground there?
Yeah, I really do feel like he's looking at his senior season and focused on his teammates. They're 2-3 right now. They're really trying to get back together. and work some things out. So I think he's trying to focus on that, not too much recruiting. But with Clemson, the only thing that's a little bit concerning is that he said he hasn't even looked into scheduling a visit. Like he hasn't looked into any dates. He told me maybe Ohio State for the Penn State game, that he'll take an official. He's visiting Georgia this weekend. He's actually at Miami for their game against Virginia on Thursday night. So the fact that Clemson really isn't in the mix there in terms of getting a visit is concerning, but also, him theoretically extending this all the way out until potentially January or February will help out Clemson a lot to make up some ground there.
Sure. And you mentioned Nathaniel Joseph. Just what were your impressions of him as a player? What was it like going and watching him practice and just overall thoughts on him?
Wow. I mean, this kid is impressive. Matt, this kid is really, really impressive. I thought he was a little bit too small based on seeing him on tape, but I think he's about 5'11". Maybe he can get to about 6 foot by the time he gets to Clemson, which for a slot receiver, that wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah.
Yep. And he's not skinny either. I thought on tape he looked a little too skinny. Definitely a kid with some muscle on him and some room to grow as well with Clemson's strength and conditioning program. But Matt, we'll touch a little bit more on his football. I'll get to his football skill set and what he does well, what I saw from him. But what stood out to me the most is who he is off the field. He's got a 3.8 GPA. He's really focused on education and life after football. He understands that football is a short-lived career and that it's going to be more about life after he hangs up the cleats. He said that he's really looking forward to getting into business management, already knows that's going to be his major. He's talking about generational wealth. I mean, this kid just blew me away in the post-practice interview. He's going to be a star both on and off the football field.
So, Clemson doesn't really have that prototypical slot right now. Is there anyone on this current roster? And I'm guessing the answer is no, but is there anyone he reminds you of at all just with his ability, or do you feel like he can really be unique and come in and help right away?
No, there's really no one that I've seen on Clemson's roster that mirrors Joseph's game. And he even said that. He said that Coach Streeter, not Coach Streeter, Coach Grisham, Coach Todd Grisham, the wide receivers coach at Clemson, he told me that Grisham was pretty much selling him on the fact that Clemson doesn't have any slot receivers committed right now. They have Adam Randall. They're going after Andre Green Jr. So they're not going to take a slot receiver in the 2022 class, seemingly. Will remain to be seen with Antonio Williams. But the goal is for him to be the main 2022 guy. He saw that Amari Rodgers left, and that was really appealing to him. He said he did a lot of research, and that was one of the big things that led to Clemson landing a commitment from him, is he feels, looking at the roster, there's a need for somebody of his skill set.
What has he thought of, I guess, the way Clemson's offense has performed this year? And is there any concern there with that group struggling so much, or did he say anything about that to you?
He had absolutely no concerns about it. He said, and once again, this is what blew me away. He said he did so much research on Clemson prior to making his decision that he anticipated the struggles that were going to be on offense, the new quarterback, Amari Rodgers leaving, some key pieces leaving there, and just the whole adjustment process that they were going to go through. He knew that it was going to be a struggle on offense, and he feels like he'll be able to help them out. He said, what was even more interesting, he said it inclines him even more to be, more in and strong with his Clemson pledge, because he sees a need for someone like himself, for some playmakers on offense. So if anything, Clemson struggles has actually helped solidify the decision that he made earlier this month.
Not only at Clemson, but is there anyone he reminds you of as a player, just watching him in person, that kind of stuck out?
Tyreek Hill. I mean,
really? That's a big comparison.
It's a huge comparison, but that in terms of just that size, 5'10", 5'11", right, just an absolute energizer bunny out there on the football field. It's funny. They were doing goal line situations, and he was just absolutely winning every single rep easily. And one of the DBs said, "He's too fast, coach." He just said he's too fast. I mean, all the DBs tried going against Nathaniel. No one could stop him. No one could get in his way. It only took overthrows by the quarterback to stop him. So he actually had a really great catch. We're going to incorporate some clips onto our YouTube page, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, I mean, I think Tyreek Hill is the NFL comparison that I would give for him. As for college, I really don't see a guy that he compares to. Tyreek is the one that jumps out to me. And I talked with his head coach, Luther Campbell, aka Uncle Luke, for those who familiar with him.
Right.
So I got to speak with him, and he told me that he pretty much brought Amari Cooper's name up when talking about previous players that he's coached and who Nathaniel reminded him of in terms of his route running. He said it's very similar to Amari Cooper. He told me that there was a game where a Booker T. Washington wide receiver was going off, and he put Nathaniel in at cornerback and he shut him down. I mean, this kid is just, he can pretty much do anything on the football field, return punts, return kicks, anything.
And so let's talk about the rest of your trip. Just what else do you have planned? You mentioned seeing a few other high-profile guys. What else do you have planned for the next 24 hours or so?
So the goal tomorrow is to stop by Dillard High School and talk with Nigel Kelly. He's a top 100 overall player, defensive end target for Clemson. You know, it seems like Miami and Florida State are some of the players there, but we'll see if Clemson is able to get a visit, hoping to potentially confirm a visit date there. And then later on that day, I'm going to be going to Cardinal Gibbons High School. There, I'll be able to see American Heritage take on Cardinal Gibbons. And there with American Heritage is Marvin Jones Jr., who I brought up initially. He's the #1 overall player in the 2022 class on 3. So, you know, I'm expecting to see a pretty good show from him, a showcase. You know, his dad played football before. You know, he's just one of the best players in the country. So he picked up that Clemson offer earlier in September. So we're going to see, you know, if that's a school that could potentially receive an offer. You know, Clemson has offered a few kids late, Matt. You know, they offered Ernest Green out of California. They offered Curtis Perry out of Alabama. So, you know, they've taken some risk here, you know, waiting this long to offer some kids. We'll see during my conversation with Marvin Jones if it pays off, you know, in terms of if they're able to get a visit or not.
Awesome, Joseph. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there for today's episode. We'll have another one of these tomorrow night, touching in with Joseph from Miami. We'll also preview the Clemson-Boston College game this weekend and talk about that. Obviously, that's a big game as Clemson tries to get back on track. And you know, encourage y'all to check out the message board. Joseph has been posting updates all day there. He'll do the same tomorrow from what he's learning from down to his trip to South Florida, and posting stories as well on ClemsonSports.com. So it was $10 right now for a year. Really encourage y'all to come check it out, join, and see what we have to offer. But appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll see you next time.